Good morning. My name is Ben Shipley. I'm a VP of Sales for North America for CoolAutomation. Happy to welcome all of you today to our webinar where we'll be talking about energy maximization, optimizing your energy usage through more effective means utilizing CoolAutomation's platform. I will be hosting this meeting. Kevin Ward will also be participating. He'll be walking us through some of the software and other capabilities of our product technologies. To begin the presentation, we always like to give you a brief background on the company as well as the core of our products. So we were founded in 2009 in Tel Aviv, Israel. We were established with developing a unique VRF native solution for remote management, for remote optimization, as well as for effective integration into almost any platform. We do have a truly global presence where we have offices throughout the world, and of course, including the United States. As you can see there in the slide, we have installed many of these throughout the entire world. Our North America team is myself, as I've already introduced myself, Kevin Ward is our customer success manager over the software onboarding as well as post-commissioning support, and David Diaz-Perez, who will be jumping on later on to handle any questions you might have about any of the technologies. He handles pre-sales engineering. So let me give you a very brief and very high-level overview of the topology. For those of you that are not familiar, this is a brief introduction. If you have further questions about this, probably best to reach out to us after the webinar. We're happy to talk to you about it in further details, but we've developed an edge-based device. The product is either the CoolMasterNet, CloudBox, or CoolLink Hub Cool Plugs, and those natively interface into any VRF manufacturer out there, as well as any mini split manufacturer. They also have the capability to interface into other HVAC systems, whether it's unitary equipment or central plant type of equipment. Box is very flexible, able to bring all those data points and capabilities into a central location, and then pass that up into our cloud, where we then have further capabilities that we're going to get into much more detail here in just a minute, that allow you to optimize the management of your facilities, to optimize the energy use of the HVAC equipment that you're controlling or managing, as well as to give remote access to end users. So if you're doing a multi-tenant property, perhaps the tenants in the space, and giving you the flexibility to be able to handle that service, other components remotely as well. Today, though, we're focusing directly into the energy management aspect of it. So I wanted to start talking about where the key opportunities are for trimming down your overall energy costs. And really, these bubbles here give you a good high-level understanding where that might occur. So first, you'll see there on the left, the energy-specific programming. So this is where you go beyond just managing your space, making sure the temperatures are set to an acceptable level for the occupants, but actually getting more specific into how that's handled. And that's closely coupled with smart HVAC control. Obviously, if your controls don't have the capability to be able to accommodate energy specific programming, then it's not going to work very well. So that's the first, I would say, probably the lowest hurdle to jump over. And then as you get into the more sophisticated aspects of the system, that's when you start running into deeper analysis. First is probably the proactive notification that you can do by creating optimized targeted alerting so that you can see when there's deviations occurring on the site. And then I would put that with the long-term analysis, right? So maintaining a database-driven platform and being able to detect exceptions or deviations from normal operation, thus eroding your energy savings, is going to be probably the next big opportunity. And then there on the bottom right-hand side, the yellow bubble, preserving your energy savings is going to be key as well. While that may not necessarily represent additional savings, there is substantial erosion that occurs after commissioning for a number of reasons. So preserving that does represent ultimately a savings if you're looking at over a 3, 5, or 10-year span. And then last, and probably of interest to a lot of you, is the utility side savings, right? Being able to maximize your system to take advantage of utility programs or compliance to other standards, bodies, municipalities, whatever that might be. I know those are representing immediate opportunities for many of our customers out there across the United States. So let's go specifically into each one of these categories. We'll start with the energy specific programming. So as mentioned, this is really extending out beyond just the control of the system and making sure that the set point is correctly set at the beginning and that everybody's happy. This is where you now get into more aggressive management that obviously minimizes the effect of the environment by making those changes. And there's a lot of very low-hanging fruit here. As you can see, probably the first and most straightforward one is the enhanced scheduling. So a rule of thumb in the HVAC industry is that any opportunity that you have to trim back your set points by a degree represents a 3 to 5% reduction in the energy use of that mechanical unit. So simple procedures for like rolling back the set point, or during partial occupancy periods, perhaps shifting the set point by a degree or two, can represent over a longer period very substantial savings in the thousands of dollars, depending on how large the project might be. And this works in tandem with the set point standardization, right? So if you have come to your facility with a strategic approach that you want to capitalize on savings, setting up a program where you are standard on your set points across all the zones in that facility, or particularly if we're talking about multiple facilities, managing that centrally is the only way that can be done effectively. Again, anybody in the HVAC industry knows this very well. I can tell you from personal experience, every time I go out to a site, walk it, our facility manager will always come to me and say that everything's set and correct. And I literally have never seen once in my entire career all the set points set correctly in a building, not once. So this is a very simple, very easy to deploy option. There's other more sophisticated options like getting into corrective programming. So if you have in a multi-tenant space, for example, someone that's using an excessive amount of kWh, perhaps you set up a adjustment based on that where you limit their set point allowances or shift their set points or procedures like that. 365-day scheduling. Again, this is another one that couples closely with the enhanced scheduling, being able to maximize savings over holiday periods or unoccupied periods becomes much easier when you're having a schedule that's sophisticated enough that it knows what to do year to year. Unit shutdown. You have spaces that are unoccupied. I've seen this one frequently as well, where you have units that are pumping cooled air into spaces that are literally nothing going on, empty rooms. So hitting these up is another nice one. Incremental unit utilization, that's be probably a little bit more aggressive, but being able to round robin units and how they're operating at any given moment. And then to summarize, all these capabilities are all available directly through the cloud. The beauty of this, though, is that as CoolAutomation continues to work on, sorry, my dog's in the room. So as we continue to develop in the cloud additional capabilities, those become available to you with our control systems, no matter how long ago you installed them. So you continue to be future-proof as you make the investment in that control system. That said, I'm going to turn the time over to Kevin right now to show you some of the capabilities in our software that relate specifically to this. Kevin, take it away.
Thank you, Ben. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Ben goes through some of these examples, I'll be highlighting and showcasing how to leverage our professional application in order to optimize the energy consumption in your space. For this slide, we focused on the remote control aspects. So we can see from our app, we have complete remote control of our building. We have an instant snapshot view of the current set points, modes. We can even look at fan speeds louver positions, but all this scheduling is completed from this tab on our app. And I'd like to showcase some quick methods of standardizing set points, leveraging the schedules in order to achieve the energy savings that you're looking for in your building. The first thing we can notice, set points are not standardized at all. They're all over the place. These tenants currently have complete control and therefore are consuming more energy than they need to be. With an 86-degree heating set point here, we probably want to lower that down to maybe even 72 degrees. Somewhere between 68 and 72 for an ideal heating set point in the wintertime. We have complete group control as well. So everything on the first floor has been assigned to the first floor group, where we have global set point control of all of the units associated to the first floor, as well as your ability to apply a schedule to each of these indoor units as well. So simply clicking on the schedule, it looks like we have an away schedule that at midnight every single day, the fan coils will all go to 75 degrees, and simply just ensure that it's active. And now at midnight, all of these will set back to 75 degrees. You can use these in order to create setback schedules or align it with your business's hours of operation. Have everything set to 72 at 8 or 9 a.m. when everybody comes in the morning, and then set back to 78 in the cooling set point or a lower heating set point during the unoccupied hours. Within the schedule, we have weekly capabilities, so we can set this for normal Monday through Friday business hours at 9 a.m. And if we apply the end time, this will actually turn the units to the off position. So better than adjusting your set point, you can also turn everything off, but of course we want to maintain a conditioned space. So better to create a new schedule with that setback time, and that would look just like this. We'll create a second group here. We'll have this called setback Monday through Friday, and we want that to start at 5 p.m. and we'd like everything to go to 78 degrees. So very easy to apply schedules, get a very quick overview of the actual set points in the space, complete group control, and also a 365 calendar where on your holidays, we can have that setback initiated on a specific day versus just days of the week. So I hope that gives you a good idea of the remote control aspect. At this time, I'd like to turn it back to Ben to highlight some other energy savings ideas as well.
Thank you, Kevin. By the way, everybody, my dog has always been very quiet in my room whenever she's staying here. I have kicked her out. That's why I turned off the video. So hopefully you won't hear from my dog again. I will say it's smart enough to open my office door, so that might happen as well. So we'll see. That said, let's talk about the next aspect, the energy savings monitoring and alerting. So this is where we get kind of into the more abstract opportunities when we're talking about energy optimization. We talk about control. Obviously, it's a very direct and clear correlation. I do think ultimately it's these aspects that we're going to talk about here in the next few minutes that really will differentiate our offering specifically, but also represent the largest long-term savings when we're talking about energy, excuse me. So first one, as mentioned, is the savings on the monitoring and alerting. With our capabilities, we have created a library of anomalies, we call them, and these library of anomalies allow you to leverage the industry experts that we've consulted in creating specific alerts that are targeting optimization opportunities. You can leverage these capabilities. You also have the capability to create your own unique anomaly rules yourself. So if you have specific issues in your facility, again, energy related, you can develop a alerting mechanism that allows you to get ahead of it rather than waiting until you engage the system again. So let's talk about a few of those. First and foremost is the early detection of degraded equipment. So with most VRF systems in particular, and HVAC systems, you have the ability to measure the current draw coming in from that mechanical unit. By measuring that current draw, you're able to draw a baseline on the usage of that unit or system. And when you draw that baseline, you can then set a triggered event that will indicate to you when that deviates from that respective amperage. So if you're drawing 10 amps and you go up to 12 amps, that might not sound very consequential, but 12 amps of current draw for your system, that might represent over $300 a month that you're spending additionally that you don't need to spend because it's just a matter of getting the proper service to the equipment. The nice thing as well is that by looking at this and understanding what's going on, you're also able to document that and price that so you can actually escalate the priority of the service, right? You can go say, this might not seem like a big deal because it's still cooling, but because of this, you're losing thousands of dollars a year by avoiding that service. Hand in hand with that would be things like fouled condenser coils, which could actually be directly correlated to the first bullet point. Clogged filters, that you have diminished cooling effectiveness and air throughput as a result of the filter being so clogged up. High, low refrigerant pressure, low refrigerant, or system diversity modeling, where you're able to actually understand how hard, especially in the VRF space, each of your indoor units is working to cool or heat that respective area. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin to demonstrate some of those capabilities. Kevin, thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Hey again, everybody. On this example, I'd like to start by showcasing the application's ability to measure your diagnostic or your different parameters from your VRF system. So we're actively pulling this from the VRF system itself and looking real time at in this case, Daikin outdoor unit. Each of the parameters that you can see from your service check tool will appear here and are tracked and trended for up to a year. So all of the operating pressures, temperatures, and in this case, we even have the compressor current. You can see that when the system is off, your current is 0, but as the system starts to engage in the heating cycle, now we're seeing some actual compressor current, as well as the increased condensing pressures and temperatures. So having visibility of each of these diagnostic points allows us to create specific anomaly rules that are actively monitoring each of these points for you. So we can go to the anomaly rules section. We have a library set for Daikin, Mitsubishi, LG, Samsung. And of course, there is always the ability to customize any of the rules. And with these alerts, we'll be actively monitoring the performance of the system. When any of these factors that may be degrading your performance, of course, that incurs higher energy consumption. System is not working as effective as it can be because of some of the issues Ben has mentioned. Poor heat exchange across your condenser or evaporator coils. If there's any type of refrigerant leaks that degrades system performance, causes the system to operate for a longer period of time, and therefore draws more energy. So the better maintained your system is, the more energy efficient it becomes. And by leveraging these anomaly rules, we can help optimize that energy consumption and your overall maintenance of your equipment. So I'd like to give you at least a basic example of one of these anomaly rules. We can definitely be a lot more advanced by looking at specific operating pressures and temperatures, by setting threshold values, and if they're exceeded or if the values drop below that threshold, we'll trigger an email or text alert. But even something as basic as an abnormal indoor temperature. So we can actively set this alert to look and monitor at the room temperature or the suction temperature of that indoor unit. This value is completely customizable, so we can have it a little bit tighter of a range, maybe 77 degrees. And then it will be monitoring that for a certain length of time. But anytime the room temp is above 77 degrees, or if the room temp falls below a certain value, this anomaly rule will trigger an active alert to your email or via text, and you'll instantly be alerted that there's something wrong or something that is consuming more energy than it should in the space. If it's too hot, it could indicate that a window or a door is open. If it's supposed to be in cooling and the system's not able to satisfy a 74-degree set point and it's 78 degrees in the room, that could indicate very readily that something is wrong with the system, whether we're not receiving the performance that we should. It could be low on refrigerant. There could be poor airflow across that indoor unit, so not enough heat transfer. But even a rule as simple as this can go a long way with enhancing energy or optimization for your building. And I hope that covers at least the anomaly rules. Ben has more examples for us, so I'll turn it back over to him. And look forward to showing you the next slide.
Thank you, Kevin. So after you figured out how to control better, after you figured out how to get those proactive alerts out, now comes the long-term energy savings opportunities. So most important, and really where I think the cloud shines the brightest, is going to be in the ability it has to gather and maintain all that data that you've brought in from your HVAC system, and then to have the intelligence to look at the data that's coming in from the system and convert that into some actionable information that will detect deviations, detect unusual behaviors in the system that might be invisible if you're looking at it on a day-to-day basis, excuse me, or at any given moment, right? So with long-term performance analysis, that's completely database driven. So you're going to be looking at things like diminished set point maintenance. What does that mean? It means how difficult is it for your system to be able to get to set point, and how difficult is it for it to maintain that then over an occupancy period? That's key, right? That's something, again, you can't see it day to day, or at least not very effectively, but being able to look at it long term, you can watch that trend start occurring. With that, as well as looking at any baselines, we talked about amperage, but there's other baselines that you can be looking at, and looking at any of those deviations over longer periods of time. Looking at the overall kWh usage on each of in the VRF space in your indoor units is also going to be very helpful, particularly if the schedules and the set points are remaining consistent month to month, year to year. Any kind of deviations in the kWh will be raise a flag. And then last is also the visibility that brings into your tenant space as well, right? So we've shown you a lot of the administration in our tools, but that visibility can also be moved over to the end users, and it allows for an opportunity to encourage them to engage in whatever energy savings initiatives that you might be pursuing. So with that, I will mention I have not neglected to highlight some of these, but you can see over on the right-hand side the estimates. I'm sure you've read each of the previous slides, and you'll see some on the subsequent slides. But I will only indicate, at least with the two slides that we've talked about, long-term as well as the alerting, those are really going to be driven by taking that data, that information that we're pushing over to you and acting on it. Obviously, if you don't act on this data, then you're going to have a hard time seeing those savings. So with that, I'm going to let Kevin talk about the long-term opportunities with our platform. Kevin?
Thank you, Ben. In this case, I like to showcase or highlight the reports section of our professional app, which you'll have a dashboard view of your specific site. Here we'll have a breakdown of the overall cooling and heating hours. So a very quick snapshot of the days that the system is running longer versus hardly running at all. We'll have an estimated power consumption from a daily kWh consumption. So very easy to see which days are consuming more power. We have a system diversity report, so it tells you how hard your system is working and how often it's working, either hardly working at all, less than 50% of the capacity, or based off of system performance, if it's running at 100%, or with it being an inverter, even beyond 100% of its rated capacity. How often are your systems actually running? So very clear bar graph that shows how often the system is running versus how often it's thermo off. And the one I'd like to showcase in this example is your set point maintenance. And here we can see how well a system is actually able to maintain the set point within 4 degrees. With the bar graph being almost full, you can see that this zone is exceptionally, or handling the set point exceptionally well. It's only out of range 2% of the time. Sometime out of range is expected. When you make a set point change beyond 4 degrees, that is time that the system needs to heat or cool in order to get within range. But 85% out of range, there's probably some type of issue going on, whether it's an unrealistic set point that needs to be monitored a little bit more tightly, or the system is not properly sized, it physically can't achieve set point, or maybe there's external factors like the window or door being open, or something that needs to be maintained or fixed with this fan coil. But overall, this data is easily modified to look at month by month. You can see the overall consumption of your site, how hard everything is running and how well it's performing, all simply from our reports dashboard here. And thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to Ben.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, so the next facet is going to be preservation of your initial program goals. You can see there on the top, the rule of thumb when Energy Auditor Handbook, this comes from that handbook, is you see a 10 to 20% erosion on your energy savings after the first 2 years. So there's definitely a distinct degradation, loss that comes with an unmanaged system. So literally by being able to be connected to the system in perpetuity represents a preservation of savings at the very least. And depending on how you're viewing this, if you're looking again at a 3, 5, 10-year term, it actually represents a new savings opportunity in and of itself. It definitely speaks to the importance of, again, of maintaining that connection. So with the CoolAutomation platform, and really key to savings, preserving these savings is going to be, first one, the ability to universally lock out, no matter the manufacturer or the type of system, users and the changes that they can make locally at the site. Coupled with that, of course, is going to be allow them to also have limited adjustments and perhaps coupled that with automated reversions, right? So based on occupancy transitions, being able to set back to the original set point settings. Also, I talked about all three of those points. And last one, of course, is the proactive alerting. So understanding when a change has occurred so that you can remediate immediately, or at least understanding why that change might have occurred. So Kevin, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thanks again, Ben. So this is going to fall under the control settings section of our professional app. From here, we allow for any type of restrictions, whether that is from the remote control app itself or locally at your wired controller. From the app, we can very easily set a heating set point range or a cooling set point range, also in auto. You can completely disable the user's ability to turn a unit on and off or allow a set point change. Or if you want it to be completely removed from the remote control section of our app, you can do that as well. These settings create a template that you can then apply to any of your indoor units or your entire site. But for cooling, in order to avoid having somebody setting it below 72 degrees, for example, we're at 70 or below, this might be a little too energy intensive. So we want to give them the ability to be comfortable in their space, but not overconsume energy as well. So we can limit this between 72 and 84 or whatever range you'd prefer. And locally from the actual wired controllers, we can apply the same limitations. So we can activate a cooling and heating set point range, move this to the appropriate temperatures, and apply that to specific controllers. They may feel like they're able to set the change from the controller, but the cloud-based logic simply reverts that back so that the set point is always within your specified range. And this will allow you to make sure your system isn't overcooling or overheating. You're always within a preferred range that optimizes the efficiency of your building. And we have that from two layers of control, whether that's locally at a wall controller or remotely through our app. And with that, thank you very much. I'll turn it back to Ben.
Thanks, Kevin. Last primary point when we're talking about energy savings is going to be on the utility side. So any opportunities to capitalize on any programs at the utility. There's also obviously municipal opportunities, perhaps even state opportunities to save some money for your customers. I just want to hit a couple of these points. There's actually not anything that I'm intending for Kevin to show for this, but I think you've seen enough of our system to understand that there are tools available, one, to meet minimum criteria for these utility incentives, and two, the capabilities inherent in the system to be able to roll back based on a demand profile, KW profile coming in. I will say as well that one of the development priorities here at CoolAutomation is to build in ADR support. For those that are not familiar with the term, that's automated demand response. That means a triggered event coming from the utility and having the system act in a specific way based on that triggered event. This is something that we're developing and anticipating that we'll be releasing very soon. So that will add even further capabilities and allow you to explore, again, with your utility partners, other programs that might save you significantly. In very sensitive areas, New York City is a good example, California is another good example. These incentive programs can represent tens of thousands of dollars for the project and effectively will bring the ROI on anything we're talking about today than less than 12 months very easily. So you do not want to miss or omit this part of the equation. Look to your utility partners. look at what's available, what options are there. We'll be happy to work with you as you're exploring that to help you understand where we might come in to meet those expectations. So from here, I want to talk a little bit more about energy related capabilities, not necessarily representing energy savings. Something that is often talked about with our products is going to be our ability to do calculated power distribution for a VRF system. So through this, you're able to get a profile of the individual units in the system, understand exactly how that kWh is being distributed throughout the facility. And of course, this comes into value as well if we're talking about a multi-tenant space where you want to perhaps indicate to the tenant how much kWh they used and build that into their lease terms or however that might be set up. I do want to give Kevin an opportunity to show that very briefly as well. Kevin, you want to take them through that?
Yeah, certainly. So all within the same app. This time we'll take you to the power distribution section and the usage analysis. So the proportional power distribution will give you a breakdown of the kWh consumption for each of your zones on any given system. The way we accomplish this is through logic that calculates the breakdown, but we're also applying a kWh meter to the outdoor unit. So we're metering that total consumption and then breaking it out for you amongst each of your indoor units. So in a multi-tenant application, you can see which fan coils are consuming the most. So you get a breakdown of the kWh as well as the runtime, as well as a breakdown of the consumption while the unit was in cooling mode or heating mode. You can look at this unit by unit, or you can view it on a day-to-day basis. So you can easily see, in this case, we're looking at the month of February. You can see which days consumed more energy on average versus not. And you can also see your weekends pretty easily here as well. This can be sent or emailed as a weekly, daily, or monthly report. And so you simply create the report, which spaces that you'd like to be included in that breakdown, the tenants or the system itself, and then the recipients of the report. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Ben. And if there are any questions about this feature, we'd be happy to answer that in the Q&A section once we conclude the webinar.
Thank you, Kevin. So the last thing to highlight here, again, I don't necessarily put this as a direct energy savings opportunity, but these often go hand in hand, is the understanding of sustainability initiatives as well. So as you're reducing energy, obviously there's going to be a strong relationship to your ability to reduce your carbon footprint as well. So I do want to highlight that our products are well suited for being in compliance to accreditation standards. So if you're working for LEED certification for your building, we represent a great option for that. Energy Star, ASHRAE, I didn't put on here, USGBC, Green Globes, all of these. We've worked with them in the past, and we're happy to work with you in the future, as well as you're looking at projects and how you might be able to maximize your points or whatever the case might be to be compliant to those standards. That goes hand in hand with we're seeing a lot of municipalities right now that are utilizing those sustainability standards to determine and dictate their own compliance requirements for buildings, older buildings or new buildings, to meet as well specific efficiency standards. So, and then there's obviously other carbon related opportunities here. We've mentioned reduction in wear and tear. So you're not buying as much equipment. You're not shipping the equipment again. You're not buying in foundry and shaping a new piece of equipment that represents a very significant carbon impact. Early detection, of course, we've talked about that. Any kind of deviation where your amperage is drawing more represents more carbon that you're putting into the atmosphere. Site visits, another intuitive opportunity where you're not driving your van as much. You're able to do that remotely. That's another big benefit. So, and then last point that I want to bring up is sustainability can be very effective when you might be thinking purely on the energy savings side of things. This is an effective marketing opportunity for your end user customers as well, for them to understand that the energy reduction is not just a arbitrary imposition that you're making in their space, but that you're shaping this as a opportunity to reduce their carbon footprint, right? So them having that understanding will help them be a lot less resistant to any of those kinds of initiatives. So let me summarize here. We really have three audiences that we're working with in this space. We have our service providers, those that have service programs. The energy efficiency represents maybe not necessarily the core of your program, but it represents an enhancement and definitely a notable differentiator from other service programs out there. So you're able to use actually the service diagnostic data, a lot of that is highlighted by Kevin, to indicate performance issues as well. So not only are you making sure that it's comfortable in the space all the time, but you're actually saving them energy on top of it. And then that remote diagnostics and support is going to give you the ability to be ahead of things. And when you're ahead of things, it has all sorts of positive effects, including the energy side of things. Facility managers are going to love that they're going to be able to see where their problematic areas are, where there's people that are perhaps deviating from the standards or the operational settings for the system and are going, going rogue. So you're going to be able to target them, either gently help them understand what they need to do to change that, or be able to lock them out from any changes that they're making. And then working alongside the service providers, you're also going to see optimization in the performance of the equipment. And then lastly, the power distribution capability that Kevin just highlighted, ability to give accurate billing and kWh usage on a tenant by tenant basis. For the tenants, they're going to see lower bills. That obviously right there is probably the most important and most significant. And they're going to be engaged in your program because you can give them the ability to see what's going on in their space as well. And you couple that with, again, the idea of a sustainability initiative that represents a win-win, I think, for everybody. So energy savings, say it succinctly, is something I think that is universal. The CoolAutomation platform represents a great opportunity, again, to capitalize on those savings. But the beautiful part as well is that as we continue to develop our platform, your investment in our technology will continue to be able to maximize those capabilities. So you're future-proofing your purchase, and you can see long-term savings and opportunities. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to everybody. I'm sure you've seen on the bottom in your console there that there's a place that you can ask questions. Some of you might have already typed in a few questions. It's possible that David's even answered some of those questions already, but feel free to ask either myself, Kevin, or David if there's any questions that you might have. We're happy to talk to you and answer those immediately. If we don't get to all of them, we'll answer more of those after our presentation. So thank you all for your attention. Kevin, of course, thank you for working with me on the software.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I see there's been a lot of valuable information shared and discussed today in our webinar. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Kevin. As well as I've seen some really good questions come in. Please, guys, feel free to use the Q&A option within your Zoom control window and go ahead and type them in. We're ready to start answering them. Feel free to hang out and stay as long as you want. We have another 10 or 15 minutes or so. We're just gonna cover some questions here live, or feel free to drop off and you will be receiving a link to the recording of today's session that will also include the questions. All right, so let's start with some of the questions that I've seen on here. So questions about an existing customer of ours was saying, hey, can we actually benefit and leverage this cloud-based application with all existing CoolMasterNet devices that have been installed on the field? And absolutely, the answer is yes. Any of your existing projects that already have CoolMasterNet devices in there, or any of your retrofit projects, perhaps we do offer a cloud box device that you can just put in just to utilize it as a gateway to our cloud services. And yes, you can simply connect those. All we need, the ones you already have installed, all we simply need is the serial number and the PIN number of the devices, and then we can do the onboarding onto the cloud platform and start leveraging these functionalities immediately. So yeah, send us an email and we'll take it from there. Thank you. Another question is, question about the pricing structure. Is this a one-time purchase? Is this more of a subscription base? And absolutely, it's a combination of both. We offer the pricing, structured pricing on the hardware solution needed to enable the monitoring. And then we offer a annual based subscription model for different size projects, right? So from there, we have different, we offer different packages for different size projects. We do not charge on a per point basis. We unlock every available service and diagnostics data point as it comes from the VRF system itself. And so you don't have to worry about the number of points. Thank you for sending in the questions. I see another one has come in. Question about humidity control. Humidity control, we do have a way to bring in additional HVAC units and additional non-HVAC sensors. So we offer a very robust universal input output board that has native communication and direct plug and play integration with our devices. And to that input output board, you can land as many sensors as you want. Any kind of sensors that you want, whether there'll be relative humidity sensors, whether they be space temperature zones, whether they be any normally open, normally closed type dry contact sensors, right? And through our cloud-based solutions, as demonstrated today, you can actually leverage the automation functionality, and that lets you pre-program conditions based on the readings from those sensors, control different units in the same building, in the same spaces. And you can automate all of those, so you don't need a human component on there to actually be monitoring the spaces and controlling units remotely. So thank you for sending that in. I see another question has come in about what regions in the United States have we found the most success? Ben, I see you jump back on board. Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to it. Thank you, David. So, of course, when we're talking about energy management in particular, anywhere where the kW pricing is going to be either very volatile or very high is going to be the best markets in general for implementing some of these capabilities. So places like New York, the Northeast, again, California, I mentioned them in the presentation a little bit, are obvious targets. But that being said, it really doesn't matter what market it's in. If there is a drive to reduce the overall energy profile at the building, it's going to be suitable for deployment. So we have projects in Florida, Texas, throughout the Midwest, even, where they're using this technology just to bring down that pricing even further, right? And to continue to save for our customers. I also had a question about the pricing example. Happy to talk about pricing. I think it's best suited to understand that the pricing is obviously scaled to the size of the project. So I will reach out to any of you that are interested in understanding how the model might work, and discussing that project specifics with you, going through how that pricing is structured and what that would look like on a project by project basis. So that's all I have right now. David, anything else on your side?
All right, thanks, Ben. I think we got a question about the kW metering connection into our system. I'm glad we got that, because I have a connectivity diagram ready to show. So let me go ahead and change the screen share here really quick. Oops, I don't know where my control went. Here it is. All right. 1 second. All right. Hope everyone can see the screen here. And all right, so for the connectivity into our of kW metering for VRF systems specifically, it's a pretty cool solution that we have developed in-house. It's a combination of both hardware and software, and it's perfect for the multi-space type spaces, right, that we've covered today. So by simply connecting a kW meter on the electrical side for a condensing unit with advanced VRF systems connected through the same central control unit, CoolMasterNet, or the cloud box that we've got into the central control line of the VRF system, it's how we are able to perform all of these calculations. And there's a lot of key benefits, especially when compared to each manufacturer's own proper offering. You know, just the simple fact that our solution is multi-brand and multi-manufacturer agnostic, right? We can provide a whole lot of benefits in connection through our cloud app, enable all sorts of solutions. You can also, this concept diagram here is also very easily scalable. It's not a one CoolMasterNet per system or a one kW per system. You can multi-daisy chain several Modbus communicating kW meters into the same device. And of course, you can scale on the VRF system side. You can have up to 255 indoor units of control through one single CoolAutomation device. So it's pretty robust solution. Okay, let's go back to. All right, let me see. Am I missing any questions?
Looks like at least one more just came in regarding the benefits available for all supported HVAC brands. All of these are standard to our applications. So regardless of the manufacturer of VRF that we're connected to, whether it's one manufacturer in the building or potentially two separate brands at the same time, we can apply the remote monitoring capabilities, the proportional power distribution capabilities, your anomaly alerts, scheduling, diagnostics. If it's VRF, then 100% of these capabilities are available. And again, it is an agnostic product, so we don't mind if it's Daikin, Mitsubishi, LG, Samsung, etc. We can work with each of them.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I'll add a little bit to what Kevin's saying as well. So we talk, obviously we specialize in the VRF space. So there's a lot of discussion around VRF, but we have the inherent capabilities as well to look at other equipment, HVAC equipment, or general equipment, like we've touched on a little bit previously. So these capabilities can be leveraged into other unitary pieces of HVAC equipment, whether we're talking about a rooftop unit or package units. And then we can look at other options as well, even. So it's pretty universal. Obviously VRF, there's a lot of data that we're able to get out of it natively, but that doesn't limit us, that we can look at other HVAC. Thanks.
All right. Keeping an eye on the time here. We don't want to take any longer of your guys' valuable time. We appreciate you joining us today. Thank you for being a part of our CoolAutomation journey. Thank you for being a part of us changing the industry on the enabling IOC and the Internet of Climate Control through our platform. We look forward to talking to you guys. Send us an email. We'll follow up with the recording of the session today. And if you have any open projects, like Ben said, please do send them over. Our contact details are on the screen, and we look forward to continuing to work together. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.